Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
All right, welcome in, everybody. You know, Rod, I talk all the time about how you wait for football season all summer, then it gets here and it flies by. Already a third of the way through the season.
Hard to believe.
4 games out of 12 already completed. Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports, alongside Rodney Orr, Mr. Tider Insider himself. I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. Well, Alabama turned in what I think, just 4 games, but I think it was his most complete performance of the year. They were dominant this past Saturday in the SEC opener against Vanderbilt, 55-3 at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Alabama's offense racked up 628 yards of total offense. Still, a lot of fans don't like Bill O'Brien. 628 yards is 628 yards. Vandy was held to 129 yards. Still, a lot of people don't like Pete Golding. Bryce Young did his thing. Listen, he's getting to take a lot of time off, and Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson are getting to play a lot. That's good. Ja'Cory Brooks busted out on the first drive. Really, Rodney, this one was never a competitive game. I mean, again, you start looking for flaws, and I guess you could talk about Kool-Aid McKinstry, who's done an unbelievable job returning punts. Did have a fumble, which was recovered by Vanderbilt, and then Brian Branch, who took one back the distance against ULM. Took a short punt, probably should not have tried to catch it, muffed it, but Alabama got on top of it. But I don't know what to say. Will Anderson on defense, 2.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and looked like himself. Alabama, there he is right there, had 8 tackles for loss. I mean, for 60 minutes in the game, which is what Nick Saban talks about, they sustained maximum effort. Even late in the game, Jamarian Miller, when they're just trying really to run out the clock, bust a long touchdown run. Alabama looked fabulous to me.
They really did. You know, we talked last week, Gary. We said when we summarized this game, wanted to see a lot more cohesiveness offensively. I think we saw that up front. I think we're seeing that offensive line develop. We're seeing some cohesiveness develop with Bryce Young, the receivers. I thought the running game really looked good from, you mentioned Jahmyr Gibbs, Jace McClellan, all the way to Jamarian Miller. I thought all of those guys looked good. Roy Dale Williams, Trey Sanders in between the defense. There you see DJ Dale getting a sack. So everybody got in on it. I thought it was a really good performance.
Yeah, you know, and we saw against ULM, Nick Saban just had Ty Simpson take a knee, so Alabama wouldn't get to 70 because they had the third-team offensive line. This is what happens. And listen, I said last week, I like Clark Lee. I think he's going to do a good job there at Vanderbilt. And they're an SEC team. But late in the game, you know, Alabama's got the second-team offensive line in there, and you've got Jamarian Miller. But like I said, you can't help it if, you know, your backup sometimes are as talented or more talented than the other team. And again, that's what I think, Ronnie, is so exciting about that performance was simply against an SEC opponent in the opener that you have that kind of performance. And everybody's worried about the running game. Well, they rushed for well over 200 yards, and all 5 of those running backs got to play, and all of them looked very, very good.
Yeah, they really did. And you look at Jace McClellan and Jahmyr Gibbs, I think they complement each other so well. I mean, you've got a guy, and there's Jamarian Miller, the true freshman. He's going to be a really, really good player. So, now, I think this running attack, you know, I know a lot of Alabama fans kind of were concerned. They wanted to see Alabama run the ball better. Listen, again, I know it was Vanderbilt. People say they're – but I think Vanderbilt's a really improved football team. I think it's just Alabama. I think they ran the ball extremely well. I'm really encouraged what I see with that offensive line. I think Eric Wolford is going to do a fantastic job.
Quick word on the coordinators. Again, I don't need to defend these guys. If Nick Saban has confidence in them, that should be enough. But again, it's become incredibly popular. I do a talk radio show. On talk radio and on the internet, your site, to just bash these 2 coordinators like they're, you know, elementary school peewee coaches. Some numbers on the Alabama defense: 2nd in total defense, 2nd and 3rd down defense, 3rd in scoring defense, 4th in rush defense, 6th in pass defense. Have not allowed a play of over 50 yards all season long. As we mentioned, 623 total yards against Vanderbilt, an SEC opponent on the offense. Last season, Bill O'Brien in his first year led Alabama to its first time ever having a quarterback win a Heisman Trophy. Again, are they perfect? No, but I don't know. If you have these kind of performances and people are complaining, sometimes you just have to say to yourself, it doesn't matter who they've got, you know, calling plays or calling the defense. People are going to find something to complain about.
Yeah, the head coach for the New York Giants last night, Brian Daboll. I mean, he was here 1 year, and everybody was complaining about him. He won a national championship, helped win a national championship. I mean, that's just kind of the way it is. But it is, Gary. I mean, I think people forget quickly how bad things once were.
Yeah, we'll preview the Arkansas game, of course, a big one coming up. But right now, recruiting news, and it's more good news for Alabama. Not only kicking, you know what, on the field. They're doing it in the recruiting trail as well. This past Wednesday, a top East Texas prospect, wide receiver Jalen Hale of Longview High School, committed to the Crimson Tide over his other finalists, Texas, Georgia, and Texas A&M. His dad pins the Alabama necklace on him right there. It looked like for a long time that Texas had the edge, but in the end, Nick Saban, as he most often does, prevailed. This is the second top East Texas recruit to commit to Alabama recently. Right before Hale, on that Monday, Tyler Legacy defensive lineman Jordan Renaud, who was a high school teammate of Jamarian Miller, committed as well. But let's talk about Jalen Hale. This is, you know, what you're looking at, you know, what you're looking for in terms of wide receiver. He's got some size, he's got some speed, he's a track guy, and he's got the hands. He really is the total package as far as what you're looking for in a college wide receiver.
Yeah, he is. I mean, you mentioned the length that he has. He's close to 6'2", Gary. He's got the extra gear that you look for. He's a guy that, you know, you talk about the complete package. We talked about Jordan Renaud last week. We talked about Jamarian Miller when he came out. Just kind of they fit that the culture that Nick Saban recruits to. I think the same thing with Jalen Hale. I mean, he's the right kind of kid. He's got all the tools. You know, you want a guy that comes in with the right mindset. And I'm seeing more and more of that in this recruiting class right here, because we've talked about NIL and how it can cause issues. But I'm looking at this recruiting class and I'm seeing, look, they're bringing in the right kind of guys.
Yeah, Alabama are already rated #1 in recruiting, and Hale even more so boosts and strengthens that ranking for the Tide. Basketball recruiting, too. The Crimson Tide on Saturday secured a 4-star commit for the class of 2023. Davin Cosby, an outstanding shooting guard out of God Christian Academy in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's got terrific mechanics. I tell you this, Rodney, again, you know, Nick Saban hates comparisons, but we get to make them. It kind of reminds me of Joshua Primo a little bit. You know, he's just kind of a smooth operator. I think his best basketball is in front of him. And you know, in that Alabama offense, we saw it last year when Alabama struggled to shoot the three. In the year before, when they were devastating shooting the three, when they make threes, they're going to be hard to handle. You got to have shooters in this offense. He's one of them.
Yeah, I mean, he continues now to recruit the kind of players that you mentioned, Gary, that fit that system that he wants. And listen, I think it's what these kids have seen, Davin Cosby. They have seen what Alabama's doing now and how it fits them, and I think it's only going to help recruiting.
Yeah, Cosby, 6'5". Again, I think he compares to Joshua Primo. Of course, Alabama hopes he's good, but probably hopes they get more out than 1 year out of him. Only got 1 year with Primo. Well, still to come on Tider Insider TV. We'll discuss Alabama volleyball returning home after 10 straight matches on the road. That is a lot. And also, we'll hear from Arkansas head football coach Sam Pittman and take a close-up look at the Razorbacks. That's all coming up on TITV in just a little bit. We'll be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, that phone number, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. You can email us at the address on your screen, or you can tweet at us using the hashtag TITV. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only Tider Insider TV.
They can beat you before you ever run out on the field. And programs like that, Georgia, I don't know, in other conferences, maybe USC's that way. I don't know.
And welcome back to TITV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. With Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Well, Alabama's game against Arkansas will be the first ranked versus ranked matchup of the season for the Crimson Tide. Remember, Texas was unranked, even though Alabama had their trouble with the Longhorns. UT played them down to the wire. The Razorbacks are most likely, I think I'll say this, the toughest opponent to date. That's not anything against Texas, but I think Arkansas is better. Now, they are coming off a disappointment. They jumped out 14-0 over A&M Saturday in Arlington, Rod, and they were up 14-7, and it looked like they were going for a touchdown, and K.J. Jefferson tried to leap over the top and got the ball knocked out of his hand. It wound up going back 90-something yards the other way, and that turned the game around. And A&M won that game when this field goal. Look at this. Have you ever seen one land on top of the upright? It landed on top of the upright. Watch this. That's how close Arkansas was to winning. You know, we saw it last year at College Station. A field goal can decide, and we saw it at Texas this year. Field goal can either make you feel good or make you feel bad. But this is a physical Arkansas football team. Alabama is favored by 16.5 points, but Arkansas on the line of scrimmage, they're big on both lines of scrimmage. 2 inside linebackers, and they're a really good team. Here's Will Anderson Jr. now on how he wants to be a hateful competitor and go into Fayetteville and shut them up.
We want we want fans to leave their own stadiums. And I think the message this week is we want fans to leave their own stadiums, and I'm going to try to preach that all week. But go out there, have fun, do your job, and, you know, make sure the fans are leaving about time halftime come, or at least by the end of the third quarter.
He's smiling, but he's not kidding. That's what he wants to do. And that's what Alabama did for so many years around here. They'd go into these SEC stadiums and just empty them out. Hasn't been the case lately, but maybe Saturday. Getting back to Arkansas, though, and we'll start with the defense, because last year Bryce Young lit them up. A school record, single-game passing record, 5 touchdowns as well. That secondary still appears to be vulnerable, but let's talk about those 2 inside linebackers. Bumper Pool, one of the great names, and also a very physical kid, but they've added Drew Sanders from Alabama, and he's been phenomenal. He leads the SEC in sacks from an inside linebacker spot. He's a thumper. That's the thing, again, about this Arkansas team, physicality on both sides of the ball, and you better be ready to match it.
Yeah, they're really quick defensively, Gary, make a lot of plays, create a lot of chaos. They do give up a lot of yards defensively in the secondary, over 300 yards a game passing they allow. That could be a really tough matchup for them against Bryce Young and these receivers. But they're really solid against the run now. They're very aggressive against the run. They only allow 99 yards a game rushing. They're sound defensively in that regard. On the flip side of it, you mentioned K.J. Jefferson, a big kid. Gary, he's very efficient, 8 touchdown passes, only 1 interception. They have a really big running back in Raheem
Sanders. Yeah,
Raheem Sanders, he's 225-pounder that can really ramble. And you get these 2 guys with their size, the way they run. You know, they gave Alabama fits last year.
They sure did. Alabama could not get away from them, even though they scored 42 points. And like I said, Bryce had a record day. But here's the thing about Jefferson. Your defensive line play is critical, because you want to tie him up at the line of scrimmage before he's going. I know he's a quarterback, but he's a little bit like Derrick Henry. Once he gets going downhill on you and gets into that secondary, he can outrun people, and he also can run over people. You got to bottle him up right there on the line of scrimmage, because if he gets going, we saw it last year against Alabama, he can give you a lot of trouble.
Really can. I remember what they have like a 3rd and 16, and he converted it with a scramble. Like you said, a big physical guy, runs over people. Alabama did a nice job on him at times last year, and then there were other times that they did not. You talk about gap control, Gary. You can't. You got to be disciplined, and if you don't, he can burn you. He's really, really good. Here he goes right here against Alabama last year. Might have been the play I'm talking about.
Big hit there, Tim, but he
sure
can take a shot. When you're 6'3" and 240 pounds, you can take a lick. So this will be a challenge for Alabama. Again, Arkansas coming off that loss, it'll probably free them up a little bit. They'll say, hey, man, let's let it all hang out. We saw this similar situation last year. A&M had lost 2 in a row, Rod, and Alabama went into College Station and got beat.
Yeah, this is a really difficult challenge to be able to go up there. We've talked about how Alabama's played on the road. Last year against Florida, at Texas A&M, obviously lost the game. Auburn at the end of the year. This year, going to Texas. So this is a big challenge for Alabama to see if they've got that maturity to go on the road and play to the standard they want to play to.
Indeed. And now it's time for Coach Talk. Alabama head coach Nick Saban says that this Arkansas team is dangerous. There's no doubt about it. He says Arkansas plays hard and they make explosive plays. Saban says it's going to take great preparation for Alabama to play the way it needs to, and they're not going to let that recent loss by Arkansas against A&M affect the way that they play.
Well, first of all, I don't see their team after they lost. You know, I see the game. I see how they lost. I'm sure they're very disappointed, and I'm sure that, you know, they'll be upset with the way that, you know, the game ended up. But I don't really control how the other team thinks or what they do. You know, I think the key for us is to play the best that we can play, and, you know, not allow the other team to get well when they play us because of how we play.
Absolutely. Alabama plays its best. I like their chances. I do want to ask you again about Arkansas. This is a big game. It would have been a huge game had they beaten A&M. And I would have liked to have seen them beat A&M, because I think then it would have added some pressure to Arkansas, much like we saw a few years ago with Mississippi State when they were ranked #1. I do think this loss frees them up a little bit. It takes a lot of pressure off of them. They're 16.5-point underdogs, and they know the recent history, and I'm talking about mainly last season. As you said, Alabama going on the road. They've not been as dominant as we saw from the Crimson Tide at one time. So I'm sure they're not only excited, I bet you they're pretty confident.
Well, I think, too, the way they played last year against Alabama certainly probably helps their confidence in that regard, Gary. Again, they've got Alabama at home. This is their opportunity.
Yep, indeed. It's going to be a fun game. We'll have our predictions a little bit later on in the show. All right, well, this past weekend, Alabama volleyball returned home for the first time in nearly a month, and they played Auburn on Saturday and Sunday. Unfortunately, they dropped both matches to the Tigers by scores of 3-1. Of course, Alabama, with the new coaching staff, and they're trying to get it going, they will travel to Kentucky for a match Saturday, scheduled to start at 3:15. Well, still to come on Tider Insider TV, we'll take a look at Alabama soccer, and boy, are they red hot. And up next, your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, there's the number 205-348-WVUA. Let's hear from you, Tider Insider Nation, next. This might wind up being the best soccer team Alabama's ever had. I mean, they're really good. They shut down Texas A&M this past Sunday evening, 3-0. Gianna Paul, the SEC Freshman of the Week. And she's been playing great. All of them have been playing great. And they'll try to get another win when they face Georgia over in Athens later this week. Welcome back into TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Let's get to the phone lines because they're lined up for us. First up is Sammy up in Walker County. Hey, Sammy.
Hello, Gary. Rodney, great job, guys. Thanks. Just comments on the game. Thought the offensive line pass blocked extremely well. Bryce, of course, played great. DBs, I thought, played really great. And Rodney and Gary, I'd just like to say that Braswell, to me, he's right there with Dallas Turner. I mean, he's going to be hard to keep out of there. He's looking great, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Sammy. Yeah, Chris Braswell's a football player. You kind of echoed what we said earlier. It was a complete team performance, Rodney. But again, I think it's important to remember you're going up in terms of the level of competition on Saturday. Yeah,
you are. And he mentioned the DBs. He mentioned the corners. Let's be specific about those. I really think Terry and Arnold's playing really, really well, Gary. He's very competitive. He's a guy that's a good basketball player, so you see him going up and making plays. And Kool-Aid McKinstry. And also we saw Elias Ricks. I don't know, did Corey Jackson get in? Okay. Yeah, so those guys, 4 really good corners.
Yeah, indeed. All right, let's go down to Demopolis and talk to Rusty. Hey, Rusty, how are you?
Hey, man, how y'all getting along?
Great, man.
We got the kicking deal with the kicker lined out, but, hey, I just got a couple of comments I want to make.
Okay.
Alabama's offense has got so much talent. It just, blown away. I would love to see them go back to doing some jet sweeps and maybe some wildcat formations and that running back, number 26, Miller, down the road. When Alabama gets the ball, the announcers are going to say, it's Miller time.
Yeah, Rusty, let me tell you what, Jamari Miller is going to be good. This offense, I think, has the potential, Ronnie, real quickly before we go to the break, to be the best. I think as good as anybody in the country.
Well, I think as they continue to develop that with the receivers, which we saw, I think Jermaine Burton's going to have some big performances. Ja'Cory Brooks, we saw Treshaun Holden, some of the younger receivers. Yeah, I think the offensive line, very, very impressed.
And we'll be right back with more phone calls and emails right after this. Of the day, our email question of the day is brought to you by KDM Service Corporation, serving your family like our family. Well, how is Tyler Harrell progressing, and when will he get on the field? Rodney, I think JoJo Earl, Aaron Anderson, I think they all may be close.
Well, hopefully, everyone wants to know about Tyler Harrell, that great speed transfer from Louisville, Gary. Hopefully, within the next couple of weeks, we might see him get out there and play. Yeah,
Alabama's got a good group of wide receivers, but there is speed that number 8 has that has the potential to really take the top off the defense.
Man, it really does. We saw his highlights at Louisville. He's a big playmaker, Gary.
All right, let's get to a phone call before we close out the segment. Caleb is in Hubbardville. Hey, Caleb, how are you?
Doing good. Y'all just answered my question, but is Byron Young going to be good for Saturday? Thanks,
Rodney,
guys.
Yeah, you're welcome. He tweaked an ankle against Vanderbilt. Have you heard anything on Byron Young?
I have not heard about his availability for this game. We'll see. I do know he was in a boot after the game, which is not unusual. I did see him putting pressure on that foot, too, so maybe that's a positive sign. But the good thing is they have some depth there.
All right, we're going to try to get one more phone call in before we... All right, let's go to a phone call. No, he dropped. All right, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll come back with our predictions for the Arkansas game on an absolutely spectacular evening on the University of Alabama campus. We'll do it next. Well, this past Friday afternoon and evening at the Bryant Museum, a celebration of life for Kent Waldrop. The former TCU running back was paralyzed in a game against the Crimson Tide at Legion Field back in 1974, and he adopted Alabama, and Alabama adopted him. Coach Bryant told his family they were going to take care of Kent, talking about the University of Alabama, and they really did. And he became a Crimson man through and through. And he actually, helped name the Disability Act for Americans for Disability with President Bush. Both of his sons ended up attending Alabama with the help of the Bryant Scholarship. And I tell you what, this was a great event, Rodney. A lot of great former Alabama players were there. Coach Stallings came in for it. Curly Hallman, who was on the Alabama staff at the time. And you remember that play back in 1974, sweep to the left, regular tackle, but he hit his head and paralysis.
Yeah, I mean, a real tragedy, but it did turn into a really good story for him. And, like you said, Gary, he adopted Alabama. He became a big Alabama fan.
He sure did, absolutely. All right, Rodney, it's time for predictions.
Well, all right, look, I think this is obviously a great opportunity for Alabama to go on the road and show that they have the maturity that maybe they haven't had in some of these previous road games, people questioning how they performed in those big games. But now this is a great opportunity. They've got to do it because Arkansas is really good. It's a really balanced Arkansas football team. I think it's important that Alabama slow down that run of Arkansas, and if they can, make K.J. Jefferson have to throw it, I think Alabama would be in really good shape, 38-20.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said. I'm just going to piggyback on what you said. Alabama needs to make a statement. They made a statement against Vanderbilt at home. This is a road game. Arkansas is good, but I really, if you watch the top of the show, I'm really impressed with what I saw from Alabama against Vanderbilt. I want to see if they take it on the road. I think they can. I got Alabama. This is no disrespect to Arkansas, but I just think Alabama's going to put it on 42-16 Saturday afternoon in Fayetteville and do what Will Anderson talked about. Send the home fans home early. All right, that's going to do it for Tider Insider TV, presented by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. A reminder, if you missed the program, you can catch it again at 10:30 tonight or anytime at WVUA23.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you again next week on TI TV.